were an investor in Twitter. You became an investor in when Twitter went private. You stuck with it. It, of course, was folded into the now parent company X. And now we have the birth of XAI. Look, given your expertise within Tesla as well and a firm commitment to that company, is he too busy? Is Elon Musk now a sixth company he's leading?
Well, yes and no. I think that, of course, Elon's been too busy for a decade now and somehow has survived. And I think a lot of these projects he spearheads and puts a lot of like sort of initial inertia into, and then he turns them over to really competent leadership, and he builds great teams of engineers that we know he's good at, and that's what he's doing with XAI. And I don't think he's really quite sure yet what it'll be, and that's kind of the genius of Musk is, you know, he kind of builds these teams with a general goal, but what will come out of this, I'm sure he has no idea yet, but it'll be probably pretty interesting.
Ross, was the idea of XAI in the incorporation documents for X Corp at the time you invested?
No, I mean, so they kind of said, you know, there's a lot we don't know he will do within this structure, you know, but it's really about acquiring Twitter. But I think if you really understand Elon, he always sees things way further than I do as far as like the way he sees the future. And Twitter is just a wonderful source of data to build an AI company around, don't you think? So I think, you know, there is a grand vision of he's got the data, and that's why he's protecting it so much with the limiting of the scraping of the data from Twitter, is he's trying to protect his data because he knows it's super valuable. Twitter data is way more valuable than metadata. You know, metadata, you know, is much more personal about people, and Twitter data is really all about the world. So if you're worried about humanity and sort of bigger issues, I think Elon, you know, is building something that could be incredible, as always, really.
When the XAI Twitter handle tweeted, you know, questions to its following, I replied saying, how many H100s do you have, in reference to NVIDIA's most powerful GPU related to building of LLMs and the inference side. Lots of people replied and said, what are you talking about? Elon's got Dojo. So what's your interpretation of the read-through between XAI and the work that Tesla's done historically in machine learning neural networks?
Right. So, you know, I'm not really an engineer. I'm not an engineer. In fact, I feared those classes in school. So my understanding of it is if you're going to build AI quickly, you need NVIDIA chips because they're scaling chips that are crucial to this. And Tesla has their own AI chips, and they're building autonomy around them, and they design their own chips. And then they have Dojo, which is really like a training mechanism, which would really speed up the process of learning through this AI mechanism. But I don't see any way around them buying lots of NVIDIA chips. NVIDIA is really the hugest winner in the AI revolution, being, you know, the brains behind AI and the hardware brains. So I think that it doesn't really matter. You know, the NVIDIA and the Tesla chips are kind of similar, I think, in a lot of ways, and they serve the same purposes. But Tesla designs its own chips and designs its own training, and that is something that people should pay very close attention to, because this is really Elon's expertise, actually. He's not going into something you know, like out of his range, like Twitter, you know. So I'm very bullish on this, you know.
And of course,
I think he's the right person.
There is a different leader for Twitter now. Lydia Yaccarino is the CEO. But I'm interested more broadly on the return on investment that we're likely to be getting from this. And ultimately, this is a lot of the time when he bought Twitter, it was about more than just of course, the profitability and the rewards there. It was about building something he thought would ultimately be better for humanity. So is SpaceX to a large extent. Now we see it with XAI. How much do you pay attention to some of the concerns he ultimately has around AI's risks? Of course, he's got the Center for AI Safety on board as an overseer of this new venture.
I think his concerns are very legitimate, and I'm really happy he's bringing them up very early in the process of this technology, because if somebody would have done this during the development of social media, it might have prevented the mass amount of harm that Facebook and Instagram and other social medias has caused to our youth, for example. And so the fact that he's stepping on early and saying we do need to look at the guardrails around this, because the opportunity for abuse, misinformation, and then ultimately bad, outcomes from AI are a possibility. And so I think his focus on this early on is actually a great thing. And I think he's in a position where he can build a company with very long-term focus because it's a privately held company with investors like myself who really don't care about the short term at all. So he's really in the right position to execute his plan.
But Ross, I remember when you joined us, I believe, to really vent some frustration about leadership at Tesla, distraction, concern. You were so concerned about it that you were wanting to help take a board seat to help drive this company forward. What changes now with the birth of yet another company? You say he's been, too busy for about a decade, but what gets sacrificed here as an investor in his other companies?
Well, two things. One, he did find a CEO for Twitter, and all the things I was pushing for have happened now, from advertising to succession planning and changes to the board. And we've seen the stock recover. So it's been a hugely successful campaign economically for me and my clients and for Tesla shareholders. So I've been really happy about that. I don't look at XAI as like such a distraction like Twitter, because with Twitter, he was really like getting killed every day. He still gets killed every day with half his decisions. And just his whole thing on Twitter has been, I think, somewhat detrimental, if not very detrimental to his image. But like when you look at doing an AI company, that's like right up his alley. And he's most competent and capable of leading a team in this area without really distracting him. And there's lots of ancillary benefits that Tesla and his shareholders will get from this development versus Twitter, where I think the risk reward was much worse for Tesla shareholders, for sure.
Ross, also in the news cycle, Activision, Microsoft. You are an Activision shareholder. The merger arbs say that the chance of this deal going ahead, 80 to 85%. The FTC filed its appeal last night. What do you see as the chances of this deal going through?
Well, just with full disclosure, we sold most of our Activision in the last 2 days after the FTC decision at around $90 a share or above. We felt the risk reward of just more time. It's a cash deal at 95, so we've moved on. So just out of disclosure. So I do think the FTC is going to lose again. Linda Khan and the FTC have way overstepped their bounds, taking very weak cases to court to hurt competition in gaming. They've hurt competition. They weren't helping at all. And so I think, the FTC needs to really reconsider what their purpose is, because we're a capitalistic, society, and businesses buy other businesses. So they need to find better cases, and there are plenty of good cases they can jump in on. How about the Live Golf PGA situation? Where's the FTC there? They should be blocking that 100%. So, they need to focus on something a little bit more meaningful.